It was past midnight at the airport, the kind of hour when silence hums louder than noise and loneliness feels heavier than the suitcase you drag beside you. Daniel sat slumped against a cold metal chair, his 7-year-old daughter Lily asleep on his lap, her tiny hand clutching his jacket as if afraid the world might take him away again. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced across the empty terminal floor. His flight had been cancelled again. He didn't have the money for a hotel, not after paying for his father's hospital bills and buying a one-way ticket to what he hoped would be a new beginning. Tonight, he was just another tired face in a sea of strangers, a single dad trying to hold it all together in a world that didn't seem to care. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected encounters, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, because sometimes, one small act of empathy can change a life forever. As Daniel adjusted his daughter's jacket and tucked her closer, he tried to ignore the ache in his chest. Once, he had been someone, a promising architect with dreams as tall as the buildings he designed. But after his wife, Clara, passed away 3 years ago in a car accident, his life had collapsed like a house of cards. He had tried to stay strong for Lily, taking odd jobs and cutting corners, but every time he thought things were getting better, something would fall apart again. The final blow came last month when the construction firm he worked for shut down overnight. They didn't even pay him his last 2 months' salary. So he packed what little they had, took Lily by the hand, and decided to move to another city where his friend promised him a small job and a fresh start, but the airport had its own plans. A storm had grounded all flights, and the terminals were filled with frustrated passengers, some yelling at staff, some pacing in anger, others scrolling through their phones. Daniel had no energy left for either. He just wanted a quiet corner where he could make his daughter feel safe, even if that meant sleeping on a cold floor across the terminal. A woman sat quietly watching the storm through the large glass windows. Her name was Evelyn Grant, CEO of one of the country's most successful tech companies. To the world, she was a symbol of power, grace, and untouchable perfection. But tonight, she looked like someone who had forgotten how to breathe. The storm had trapped her too, delaying her flight after a week that had tested every ounce of her strength. Her company was on the verge of a massive merger, her personal assistant had quit unexpectedly, and her fiancé, the man she thought she'd spend her life with, had walked out 2 days ago. She wore her heartbreak behind a composed expression, hidden beneath her designer coat and perfectly tied hair. But in that silent airport, she felt more alone than she ever had before. Her eyes wandered across the terminal until they stopped on Daniel and Lily. There was something raw and real about them, the way he gently brushed his daughter's hair from her face, the exhaustion etched into his features, the quiet tenderness in every movement. It wasn't pity that stirred in Evelyn's chest, but something deeper, a reminder of what she had lost long ago. The hours dragged on. Around 2 a.m., the janitor shut off half the lights. Daniel's phone battery had died, and his stomach ached from hunger. He had given Lily the last granola bar he had earlier that evening. As the temperature dropped, he wrapped her in his coat, shivering quietly. Evelyn watched him for a long time before finally standing up, walking to the vending machine, and buying 2 cups of hot chocolate. Without saying a word, she walked over and handed one to him. Daniel looked up, startled. Her presence radiated warmth even in the cold air. She didn't look like the kind of person who belonged in an airport at midnight. "You look like you could use this," she said softly, setting the cup beside him before walking away. He wanted to thank her, but his voice caught in his throat. Sometimes, kindness hits harder than words ever could. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She found herself glancing back at the man and his daughter from time to time, watching how he held her like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. Something about the sight pulled at the walls around her heart. She realized that while she had spent years chasing success, she had lost touch with the kind of love that didn't need perfection, only presence. By morning, the storm had cleared. Announcements echoed through the terminal as flights resumed. Daniel carefully woke Lily, brushing her hair back and whispering, "We're almost there, sweetheart." Evelyn stood near the boarding gate, phone in hand, surrounded by the sound of typing, alerts, and responsibility rushing back into her world. But she couldn't stop thinking about him. As fate would have it, their flight was the same. Daniel and Lily sat 2 rows behind her, and throughout the flight, Evelyn found herself glancing back, catching Lily's laughter, the soft hum of a father comforting his child. When turbulence hit, she heard Lily whisper, "It's okay, Daddy, you always keep me safe." Something inside Evelyn cracked open. She had been fearless in business, ruthless in negotiation, but in that moment, she envied a man who had nothing yet somehow had everything that mattered. When the plane landed, Daniel gathered their things and thanked the flight attendant politely. Evelyn followed behind, her heart torn between curiosity and fear. Outside the airport, people rushed into taxis and cars. Daniel stood near the exit, scanning the crowd, but no one was there to greet him. His friend who promised him a job hadn't answered his calls in days. The realization hit him like cold rain. He had nowhere to go. Evelyn noticed his hesitation. Against her better judgment, she walked up to him again. "Do you have someone picking you up?" she asked gently. Daniel smiled faintly, trying to hide his defeat. "Not yet. I'll figure something out." For a moment, Evelyn hesitated. Then, something in his eyes, quiet strength mixed with exhaustion, made her decide. "I know this might sound strange, but I have a spare guest house near downtown. It's safe, and you and your daughter look like you could use a warm place to rest. Just for the night." Daniel wanted to refuse. Pride burned in his chest. But when he looked at Lily, shivering in the morning chill, he nodded slowly. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking. That single act of kindness turned into something neither of them expected. Over the next few days, Evelyn found herself drawn to their laughter, to the warmth that filled her empty home. Daniel, in turn, was surprised by her humility. She never acted superior, never treated him like a guest, but like a friend she had known forever. Lily adored her instantly, often running into Evelyn's office with doodles and stories. And somehow, between coffee cups and late-night talks, two broken souls began to find healing in each other's presence. Evelyn learned what it meant to care without control, to love without expecting. Daniel learned that strength didn't mean doing everything alone. Sometimes, it meant letting someone in. One evening, as the sunset spilled gold across the city skyline, Evelyn found herself watching Daniel fix a broken chair on her porch while Lily giggled nearby. She realized her heart wasn't just healing, it was falling. Not with the reckless rush of her past, but with the quiet certainty of something real. Weeks passed. Daniel got a job at a small architecture firm, thanks to Evelyn's connections, though she made sure he never felt like a charity case. He worked hard, rebuilding the life he thought he had lost. Evelyn's world changed too. The woman once known for her ice-cold composure found herself smiling more, laughing freely, and cherishing the messy, beautiful simplicity that love brings. One rainy night, as thunder rolled outside, Evelyn walked into the guest house and found Lily asleep on the couch with a storybook. Daniel stood nearby, looking at her with that same soft tenderness. When their eyes met, there was no need for words. She stepped closer, resting her hand over his heart, and whispered, "You've brought life back into this place." He looked at her, eyes glistening. "You gave us a home when we had none." And in that moment, under the hum of rain and the quiet rhythm of their hearts, two lonely souls who had once sat side by side in an airport, strangers lost in their own storms, finally found what they were both searching for: peace, love, and a reason to believe again. The next morning, Lily woke to the sound of laughter echoing through the house. Daniel was making breakfast, Evelyn teasing him about his terrible pancake flipping skills. For the first time in years, their world felt whole. Sometimes, life doesn't change in grand gestures or perfect plans. Sometimes, it happens quietly in an airport at midnight, with a cup of hot chocolate, a small act of kindness, and the courage to open your heart again.